Suppose a concert had 22,140 people in attendance, with 50% of them being under 18, 25% being between 18 and 24, and the remaining people being over 24 years old. How much of each group were in attendance? It's first important to note that when we talk about percentages, 100% is the whole quantity stated. So 100% refers to 22,140 people. Now, if you take 100 as a number and divide it by 2, we get 50. So 100% divided by 2 is 50%, or half of the people in attendance. In other words, we're going to take 22,140 divided by 2. And plugging that into a calculator, we can find what is 50%. 11,070. So 11,070 people were 50%, and that was under 18. So under 18. Okay, now if we take 50% and divide it by 2, we're going to get 25. So 25% is half of 50. So once again, 11,070 divided by 2, 5,535. And this was 25% between 18 and 24. Now, what remains? How many of the group were in attendance that were over 24 years old? Well, if we had 50% were under 18 and 25% were between 18 and 24, that's a total of 75%. If 100% is what's the entirety, the whole quantity stated, or 22,140, that means there are 25% left. 100% minus 75% is 25%. So 25% are over 24 years old, and we've already calculated that. So this is going to be over 24. So as we can see, we've seen that 100 divided by 2 is 0.5, and 0.5 is the same thing as 50%. So we've gone from a fraction to a decimal, and a decimal to a percentage. The same thing for like 50 over 2 equals 0.25, and that's 25%. So we can switch between fractions, decimals, and percents, and that's what I've shown here in this table. To go from a decimal to a percent, it's very easy. All we need to do is move the decimal point 2 spaces to the right. 1, 2, and then add a percentage symbol. So 2 spaces and then add a percentage symbol. There's no point in writing that beginning 0. We can just drop that. For this one, we just move 1, 2 spaces. We get 231.7. So just add the percent symbol, 231.7%. To go from percent to a decimal, it's just backwards. We're going to go 2 spaces to the left. So 1, 2, and then drop the percent sign. So 0.3454. The decimal point is located right here. We're going to go 1, 2 spaces, and I get 6.45 as my decimal. Now, fraction to percent, we need to first convert fraction to a decimal, and then we just talked about decimal to a percent. So 12 over 64 is this as a decimal. 1, 2 spaces, and I get 18.75%. This as a decimal is 5.333 repeating. So 2 spaces, 1, 2, I get 533 and 33,333. It's going to continue on indefinitely, so you're probably going to want to round that percentage. Now, to go from percent to fraction, there's a couple ways we can do this. We can go from a percentage to a decimal, and then use our strategy to convert decimal to fraction. So percent to decimal, of course, is just 2 spaces over. And then we're going to count 1, 2, so we're going to add 2 zeros in the denominator and get 70 over 100 and 7/10. In this case, it would probably make more sense to do the second method though, which is where we just take a percentage and divide it by 100. Then the percentages cancel, we get 903 over 100, and then we just need to do simplification on that fraction, but 903 over 100 can't be simplified. If it can, just simplify it down. But you can see this gives us 9.03, and as a percent, 1, 2 spaces, we get back to 903%. Okay, so let's look at this table here. I just have a bunch of different ones we're going to convert between fractions, decimals, and percents. So for this one here, I can convert easily to a decimal. Just move it 2 spaces to the left. 1, 2, 0.32. And then I can take 32%, divide it by 100, and that gives me 32 over 100. But this can reduce, right? If I divide it by 2, I get 16 over 50. Divided by 2 again, I get 8 over 25. So 8 over 25 is our answer. We can always check that to make sure we've gotten it correct. 8 divided by 25 is 0.32, and that is the decimal half. Okay, decimal to percent is very easy. 1, 2. I get 4.0 or just 4%. And then we can go 1, 2, 3 spaces. So that's the same thing as 40 over 1, 2, 3. And cancel a 0. And I can divide top and bottom by 4, giving me 1 over 25. Okay, 3/4. Just plug that into a calculator. We're going to get 0.75. And move it 2 spaces over. And that gives us 75%. So that one's all done. The next one, 0.625, 2 spaces over. It's going to give us 62.5%. And if I go 3 spaces over, I get 625 over 1, 2, 3 spaces. Now I can reduce this. I can divide top and bottom by 125, I think. 625 divided by 125, yep, is 5. And 1,000 is going to be 8. 5/8. Okay, 150%. The decimal point is right here. 1, 2 spaces. Can give us 1.50. And then for this one, probably makes more sense to go 150% over 100%. Cancel those. I can divide top and bottom by 50. That's going to give me 3 halves. All right, fraction. This is, of course, the easiest one to do because we just do the division to get the decimal and then the decimal to percent. So 1 3/7 is going to be, I'll do 3/7 on the calculator. I get 0.428571. It continues on indefinitely. And then just add 1 onto that, and I get 1.428571. And then it actually repeats the same thing. So that's the decimal 2 spaces over. That gives me 142.8571, and then it'll actually repeat 428571. But you can also round that, right? Okay, this one is going to be 37.5%. And then I can also go 1, 2, 3 spaces. That's going to be 375 over 1, 2, 3 zeros all the way at the very end. Okay, I think I can divide this by 125. Yes, it's 3. So we're going to get 3 over 1,000 divided by 125 was this one here is 8. All right, 72. 1, 2 spaces, 0.72. And then we can also just take 72 over 100%. Percents cancel. 72 can be divided by, I believe, 4. Yep. And 100 divided by 4 is 25. So that can't be reduced any further than that. All right, continuing, let's do these last 3. 67 over 16. Of course, we're just going to do the division. I get 4.1875. And then 2 spaces is going to give us 418.75%. 83 over 104. 0.79. This is going to actually continue. So I'm going to write it as 79.80%. Okay, last one. 2 spaces over. That's going to give us 6.25%. And go 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces over. 625. 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. I'm pretty sure I can divide top and bottom by 125 again. So I can divide by 5 to give us 1 over 16. Double checking that, 1 divided by 16 gives us 0.0625. So all that stuff checks out.